The story of the sadistic doctor from the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp has already been told in volumes, and yet the question of how a human being can sink to such a level of depravity remains unanswered. Josef Mengele was born into a wealthy bourgeois family where he was one of 3 children, the eldest, Alois, and the youngest, Karl. His father, Karl Geli, and mother, Walburga, dreamed that their son would follow in his father's footsteps and take over the family business, a company producing agricultural equipment called Mengele & Sons. However, Mengele chose a different path. From a young age, he was interested in 2 things: racial theory and biology. In Bavaria at that time, nationalist movements were popular, especially the NSDAP, the party of Adolf Hitler. In 1932, the young Mengele joined the Nazi organization Stahlhelm, which soon merged with the NSDAP. He even became a member of the SA Combat Squad, but due to his poor health, or so he claimed, he was unable to participate in their raids and brawls. Josef chose a different path. He enrolled in the medical and anthropology faculty at the University of Munich. Mengele decided that as a medical researcher, he would be of greater use to the National Socialist movement. From the above, it is clear that Josef Mengele consciously embraced his role as a sadistic executioner in a white coat. It was not just Auschwitz and other similar camps created by Nazi Germany that made Mengele a devil. It was Nazis like Mengele who made Auschwitz and the other camps the most horrific places on earth. In 1938, after receiving his medical degree, Mengele found employment at the Institute of Hereditary Biology and Racial Hygiene, where he became an assistant to the renowned German doctor Ottmar von Verschuer, who was interested in the physiology of twins. Under Verschuer's guidance, Mengele defended his doctoral dissertation. From that moment on, twins and children with physiological abnormalities became his specialty. By the time the Second World War began, Mengele was already a member of the SS. With the start of the war, he was mobilized into the army, but spent no more than a month in the Wehrmacht before being transferred to the SS Reserve Medical Battalion. Until 1942, Mengele served in the SS division Viking, where he was wounded. After recovering at the end of 1942, he was on leave due to his injury. In early 1943, with the rank of SS Hauptscharführer, he was assigned to the Auschwitz concentration camp. It was here that Josef Mengele gave free rein to all his hidden passions and inclinations, which he justified as being for the benefit of science and research. Mengele personally greeted the trains arriving at Auschwitz, and his primary interest was in children, especially twins, siblings, and children with physical disabilities. He even instructed the camp guards to wake him in the middle of the night if there were any interesting children in the arriving prisoner transports. Mengele's victims' feelings and sufferings were of no concern to him. He viewed them as laboratory rabbits. By order of the chief physician of Auschwitz, Eduard Wirtz, Mengele was essentially given a whole laboratory to conduct his horrific experiments. He tried to separate Siamese twins if they fell into his hands, or conversely, to glue together normal twins to create Siamese twins. Mengele subjected his victims to various procedures, carefully monitoring the condition of the mothers and the development of the fetuses. He always had a smile on his face, and no one ever saw the doctor in a bad mood. As he subjected another victim, a woman or child, to a terrible experiment, he could whistle a favorite tune, joke with the subject, and even encourage them. He always demanded that his victims, while they were of use to him, be fed adequately and not be assigned to any work. Uncle Josef, or Uncle Mengele, was how he asked his little victims to address him. He could treat a child to chocolate, cookies, or candy, pat them on the head, and say something kind. Then the kind uncle would lay the child on the operating table and begin his experiments without any anesthesia. The fascist Aesculapius preferred to perform the most monstrous experiments on people without anesthesia, apparently enjoying watching their suffering, all in the name of experimental purity and the benefit of science. Mengele tried to serve science, just like Dr. Che, for example, who was awarded a medal for caring for the German people. I don't know what he did for the German people, but representatives of other nations would have been better off not meeting this devil incarnate. The family of Romanian Jews, the Ovitzes, had much to say about this sadistic Aesculapius. The peculiarity of this large family was that both dwarfs and people of normal height were born into it. The family earned their living by performing concerts, singing songs, and acting out scenes until they ended up in the concentration camp. Perhaps it was this family's peculiarity, the birth of children of different heights, from dwarfs to normal, that saved them. Mengele became very interested in the Ovitz family. He studied them for a long time, took various tests, and treated them with relative kindness, not subjecting them to overly painful and dangerous experiments. According to the family's recollections, by order of Mengele, they were given separate rooms. The doctor often visited them, enjoyed conversing with them, and listening to their singing. As the Ovitz family members said, they were saved by the devil himself. However, few of the doctor's patients were so lucky. The prisoners nicknamed Mengele the Angel of Death. Most of the inmates who fell into the hands of this researcher either did not survive his experiments or became disabled, unfit for work or further experiments, which meant death. The camp administration quickly and quietly dealt with the patients of the Doctor of Death who had become unnecessary, sending them to the gas chamber and the crematorium. Josef not only used his prisoners himself, but also helped his colleagues. For example, Mengele periodically shared reports of his research with Verschuer, as well as with another Nazi scientist, the world-renowned physician and Nobel Prize laureate Adolf Butenandt. Butenandt was working on developing a drug for Luftwaffe pilots, and Mengele shared the livers of his victims, which were necessary for creating the ingredients for Butenandt's drug. After the war, neither Verschuer nor Butenandt faced any consequences. On the contrary, both held important positions. It was only at the end of the last century, when the connection between these scientists and Mengele's research was proven, that the organizations they worked for apologized to the victims of Nazi experiments and their relatives. Mengele himself successfully escaped from the concentration camp as the Red Army approached. In the first years, he did not even hide, living in Germany under a false name. Initially, he was not sought after because the activities of the Auschwitz doctor became known only in the 1950s. By that time, Mengele was already in Latin America, never staying in one place for long. He moved from Argentina to Paraguay, then to Brazil, changing names and addresses, successfully evading the agents of Mossad, the Israeli intelligence service, which tried to bring him to justice. The executioner and sadist died in Brazil in 1979. Mengele never stood trial, just like his fellow Nazi criminals, such as Irmfried Eberl, Rudolf Höss, Karl Klausberg, Maria Mendel, and others, who were rightfully condemned after the war. However, he could not escape the judgment of history